time to empower, educate, and encourage all women to motivate you through whatever you've been going through. We can talk about it. We ain't passing no judgment. So don't be ashamed. It's all the same. Stay in your lane. Your lane. It's whatever your will like. Let's ride. Stay in your lane. Come out the dark and don't be ashamed. Your lane. Let's have a conversation on what we face every day. Tune into your late talk show. It makes us feel good just to know we're not alone. No more will be isolated and cast aside. I want you to come out the door. Just don't be afraid of your heart. So don't be ashamed. It's all the same. Stay in your lane. Your lane. It's whatever your will like. Let's ride. Stay in your lane. Come out the dark and don't be ashamed. Your lane. Let's have a conversation on what we face every day. It's your lane talk show with Coach Trish Hannah.
The Bible says, be ye also ready. I want you to know that when the Lord cracked the sky, some will be available and some will get left behind. Welcome everyone to your Lane Talk Show with your girl, Coach Trish Hannah. Happy Sunday to each and every one of you. As you know, this show, for those who've been with us for a while, we're 33 episodes in. I've been saying time and time again that this show was created to educate, encourage, and empower women of all ages. And for those who are just tuning in for the very first time, hey, that's what we're all about. Today's show is a part 2 of episode 29, when they were last here. Divorce. How did I get here? In this show, I want to give each lady about 5 minutes to fully share their stories because they didn't have an opportunity to do so, right? See? They come late, some of them. So they know what's going on. I put them on blast today. But guess what? I love them because they are resilient women. They're God-fearing women. They are women of virtue. And I love them so very much. And the fact that they are just allowing that light to shine is just phenomenal. So we're still going to give them 5 minutes each to share their stories. And then later on, we will have family attorney Nadia Hope Adderley on. She's going to come in and share her professional insight and allow persons to call in and ask questions as well. Guess what? I'm going to allow you to call in at any point in time in this show to ask questions or to make a statement or just to say, look, I've been there too. I've been divorced as well. This is what I did, or this is what I've been through. Or maybe they may have a question for Lady Cedrica, Lady Lernice, Lady CG that they would want to ask and want to know how to go about, during their process. So your lane, episode 33, Divorced. How did I get here? Part 2 is brought to you by Airborne Freight and Cargo Services, John's Shoe Store and Accessories, Lowe's Wholesale, Your Lane Life Coaching, Family Medicine Center, Jerry's Babysitting Squad. Now, my predictions of emotions today for this episode. I believe about 85% serious aha moments, 5% laughter if we got Gotti, because we got Gotti here. Because Gotti like to say, I got it. So Gotti might make us laugh today. And 10% teardrops, or maybe I should do 10% laughter, 5% teardrops. I do not predict any teardrops today, but let's see. You can view Your Lane Talk Show on Facebook on Your Lane Life Coaching's page or Star 106 FM's Facebook page, or you can listen to us on channel 976 on cable. You can view the past shows on YouTube. Look up Coach Trish Hannah. Please like and subscribe. Thank you. I am inviting my audience, as I said before. The number to call in is 328-8164. 328-8164. Call on the show. Let's hear from you. Let's hear what you have to say. Let's hear what questions you may have. Let's hear the experience that you may be going through. It's open line today. All right. And so Johnson & Johnson extends happy holidays from their family to yours. Be safe, enjoy, and they want you to know that they appreciate your patronage throughout the year. Johnson & Johnson, brought to you by Lowe's Wholesale. Thus, I am just getting this out the way because I want to give these ladies as much time as they can possibly have before we get our attorney in and on board. So we're going to go straight into it. If I gave you all also an opportunity to tune in and watch the very first part one of the show, so you were able to hear a little bit about who they are, what they do, etc. So just to recap, we're going to go very briefly on what it is that you do, who you are, your kids, and how long you've been married prior to your divorce. Let's start with my beautiful lady on the left. By the way, she is available. I want y'all to know she dressed up in all hustle today, just in case there's someone that's watching and wanting to hold her hands. Go ahead.
That's very funny. Hello, everybody. I'm CG McFall. I am I'm in commercial sales, and I have two sons, ages 14. We're going on 14 and 10, and I would have been married for 4 years up until this point.
Well, I guess that's me. Good evening, everyone. My name is Cedrica Pratt. I'm a banker by profession, a woman of God, a mentor, a coach, a new author. Yay! Whoop whoop.
All right.
I have one son, a teenage boy. He's 17. Y'all pray my strength in the Lord. So I would have been married about a year and a half to 2 years prior before divorce. Whoop.
Hi, my name is Lernice Williams. My background is accounting, but I am an investment banker. I have no kids. I've been married for 2 years max, and I am just enjoying life, taking one day at a time.
That's all you can do. That's all you can do. So, ladies, just want to thank you for coming. I know the traffic was crazy. I know because I experienced it as well. But I thank you and grateful that you made it here safely. That's what matters. And so we're going to go straight into it. We're going to start with CG. CG, we're going to give you about 5 minutes, and we want you to really go into detail as much as you possibly can to share your journey, because you've stated in in the first show that you've been married twice.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you want to talk about the first, then the second one, or just the second one. That's totally up to you. That's how you.
Okay, so yes, I have been married twice. I started life very young in my early 20s. Early 20s. And so I guess with our mindsets being so young at the time, we just weren't ready for it. And then just experiencing circumstances that we weren't mature enough to handle. And subsequently, that ended. But we are very good friends and we have a very good co parenting dynamic, for which I'm very proud of.
And this is the first one.
That's the first one. Okay. And so for the second one, that was the interesting journey there, being that I wasn't, I was separated, but I wasn't divorced at that point in time. And the church that I am a part of, um, this particular person who I then married later on in the future during that season, he came to my church and preached. And this would have been the first time I'd ever seen or heard of him. And he also ended up ministering to that church for a series of maybe, anyway, just a handful of times he would have been there, just based on the flow of how things were going. And I had no idea he found any interest in me, and I never saw him in that light. I just regarded him as, preacher, and respect his calling. But I didn't know that behind the scenes he had intentions for me until he informed me of it. And when that happened, I did involve, my pastor and my immediate community, my parents, and those who were relevant to the situation. And that really was more or less an act for me of an obedience. And I say that because although I never knew him prior, and that's a story for many other persons, but in this instance for me, because I'd already seen him minister, and when he told me that, the Lord said that you're my wife, I didn't see it, never got an unction of it, but I accepted it and I respected it and said, okay, well, how could he'd be wrong if I had already seen him minister so powerfully. He has an awesome gift. And so that began my very interesting journey for which I had to just learn it and learn it through experience. And it was definitely an experience. And so for me, it was just something that I chose to go through. And it was a very, very, very challenging journey because I didn't know how to vet a relationship on that level. Because how can I ask the appropriate questions without being challenged to say, well, why am I questioning God? And if this is the person for me, especially considering that I'd already, you know, had a marriage that was no longer. And so I wasn't out there looking for a relationship. This came to me. And so I just really adhered to an obedience journey and I grew to love him. And that's how that took place. And like I said, the first time I was here, but not here, I said that the red flags that I saw, I mislabeled them as things that were hurdles, from allowing God, to have his way in the fulfilling of a relationship, of a union between us two because of the call. And I did not, I was very ignorant to that fact. And so it came with a lot of challenges. It came with a lot of challenges where I could have left, but it was a learning experience. And I also say that to say that, of course, I questioned him on many things that he did. I was always on it, but it was always a response that was very hard to challenge. Or the best way I can describe it is that, if someone is in that shoe, they can better understand it, because that's a level of authority that I'm questioning. So that I must now, understand and stay in my place. That was my mindset. And that's what I was taught during that era regarding him and myself. And so it was just it was a tedious experience. And so it was not particularly about love as much as it was about me doing what the call of God was based on my, own understanding and learning experience of it.
So let me ask you a question. I'm gonna give you about 2 more minutes.
Okay.
Don't worry, y'all gonna have the chance, right? But my question to you is, so in the midst of this, I know you said a few things. One, that you eventually fell in love, so which means you didn't love him when you married him.
No. When we first met, I didn't know him to be fond of him or anything like that. I had to learn him and grow to love him during the journey.
Right.
And
So since you met, the date in which you met to the date in which you married, what's the length and time with that?
that's a good question. We were together 7 years. And so it was 3 of those 7 years because we were married 4. So 3 of those years we were together before we got married.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna move on because I want to know how you got to the point of divorce. But that's just how Minister Cedrica, and then we go from there.
Okay, so for me, I was at a place in my life where I was single and content and happy. And so, like CG said, I wasn't looking. And it just so happened that, okay, this guy comes across my way. Well, basically, like I alluded to the first time, in a dream. I never knew him per se. We were Facebook friends. We had 1 or 2 interactions, not per se like in inbox, but like on social media, like laughing and talking and whatever. But it was nothing like that until the Lord gave me a dream concerning him, and I went into his inbox and I shared to him what the dream was, and ironically, from that first encounter, we just started talking, and he started to share some things with me, and I'm like, why is this stranger sharing personal, intimate things? For me, I always believe that nothing happens by chance. And so I always believe that, hey, even in the midst of, God showing me the dream, like this dream placed us together. And then the Lord gave me a message for him, which I did. Never knew that it was going to be something more than that. This was like CG, a man of the cloth. And so, at that first conversation, we started talking, and things began to get interesting. We started to feel each other's vibe, and we started to click, and we just we started to talk. I of course in the Bahamas, and he was in Florida. And so during that time, we would FaceTime, we would WhatsApp, talk, getting to know each other, and we really started to like, feel each other. And so this would have taken place June of 2017, and by August, September of that same year, I was engaged. Because during those months, he had just he had just came out of a marriage, and at that time we both said, hey, we know what we want. We are adults, and I already know that God had spoken to me years prior, and told me that, hey, when I do this thing for you, I know it's going to be quick, it's going to be whatever, and everything just shaped out exactly how God said it would. And so we both said that we heard God concerning it. And so it came with some hiccups, because people were like, what's the rush? But hey, again, we are two adults. So the very first time that I went to visit him in Florida, um, I went a single woman and came back an engaged woman.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it was like everything was happening so fast. And so by 2017 of December, here I was, already a married woman. Of course, it came with, like, again, a lot of people saying, why are you rushing? Church people saying, oh, you're probably getting married because you're fornicating, she pregnant, and all these different kind of things, which it was so far from the truth, because prior to then, I didn't know if this man was man or woman. And so, of course, I picked up everything. I left my good paying job at that time. I was doing well in my former church, and I picked up doing the right thing, saying, okay, I'm now leaving to start this new life with my then husband. That's the thing to do. And so I went, I moved the day after we got married, and I left my son here, because I was like, okay, I'm still basically getting to know this person. And I didn't just want to just pull him out of school. So it was the plan that he would come and live with us the following summer. Needless to say, we spent about that December to March living together. Everything was fine. I think we had one disagreement during that time, and it had something to do with his previous marriage. That's something that we didn't agree on, because he came with a blended family. I had my one, he had his three, which I accepted, and they accepted me. And we had like a disagreement concerning them, and that was the only disagreement that we had. And then another little disagreement with somebody, a friend, over crossing their boundaries, but whatever. But as far as I know, like, everything was fine. Anyway, needless to say, I ended up coming back home May of 2018 to visit. And when I was returning back to Florida, I got stopped. Um, at that time, my paperwork had not, we hadn't started the process as yet. And so, they were like, okay, well, your husband has to file for you, so you have to stay here. Okay. That was the first disappointment, because how is it now? Okay, I've waited all this time. How is it now? It was disappointing, devastating, because prior to that, I was telling him, you should go and speak to a lawyer, and let's see what we need to do. I felt like he dragged his feet with that. And so when it initially happened, I blamed him. I was like, because I got interrogated, and I was like, see, I told you, if you had gone and spoken with someone, they would advise to say, well, don't travel, stay put, or whatever the situation. He did not do that. And so during that time when I got stopped, we never knew I would have taken so long, because the process with getting papers and all of that is a tedious and a long process. That took about a year in itself. In the midst of that year, we still said, okay, we're going to do this. I can't come, but you can come to me. And even in that process, it was hard, because he was starting a ministry. He had to keep his kids on the weekends. So, and then corporate America is not like the Bahamas, where we could just play sick and play rookie. There's certain things you have to do. You just can't hop on the plane or do what you feel like. And so at best, sometimes we didn't see each other for months. In between that, I began to, again, like I alluded to the first time, sometimes when you're so close to a situation you cannot see, but when God pulls you back, you're able to see. And so then I began to see some stuff that I began to feel, uncomfortable with, uneasy with. And then that's how disagreement started. That's how like the little back and forth. And then again, we're then not seeing each other. And so that was the devil's playground right there. You're already separated. This is a newlywed marriage. Honestly and truthfully, you need that bond of intimacy to, to further bond the marriage.
So let me ask you a question. What was his reason for not coming over to you?
Again, with building a ministry, the kids, the previous marriage, the agreement was every weekend you have to have the kids. So it wasn't, even though I sometimes I felt that he didn't try hard enough, but I guess it was what it was at that particular time. So at one point we didn't see each other like for 6 months.
I can cut you right there. Let me get Lernie's to speak with her 5 minutes before we go on our break, and you can just recap of anything that you may have said from the previously. You could cut that and just go straight in some things that we didn't hear on part one, if you can.
Well, like my other colleagues said that, go through marriage. I met my significant other at a job. Yes, he was presented to me, and we both heard that, we are each other mate. And I started to court him. He previously was coming out of a marriage. I started to court him when he was legally separated. He is a man of God, still serving the Lord today. Have issues, just how I had issues. We both came with baggages. Our baggage might not have been previous marriage, but we had trauma from childhood. We had situations in life, and then here it is. We got in a marriage where we wasn't each other friend, but we had so much people, you know, so much advice we got from people, people who trusted. The enemy will use anybody to destroy you.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? The wisdom that I have now, I will tell anybody, if you're a wife or a husband, who's the strongest one, you pray. You know, and even before when you caught and something we didn't do, we didn't build our friendship. We never hang out, we never went out. Um, we only the same thing what he did, and I can be honest, we all see red flags, but we justify and we say we go work with this, we go work with that. But my red flag, a lot of things that I couldn't take in the marriage is what I actually used to, for, like I say, like a mother to a child, actually feed them. Um, so he was to him, he's being himself, which is the truth. But it was annoying to me because here it is, you're a husband, you wanted to be married. I didn't ask you to marry me, you asked, you wanted to marry me. But let me get a little deeper. To me, he was irresponsible. He didn't grow up yet. He thought that I was the mother and he's the child. He could go and sometimes my husband used to go from. He made people believe that his first, what I heard, even also his first wife, he did the same thing. So it was a routine. I started to do investigation. Then I said, you know what? What he wanted. Sometimes people go through so many trauma, and we see things where it don't have nothing to do with you, but you can add to that because of lack of wisdom. Um, if I had to position myself to be a woman who's seeking the Lord, and I could help in this deliverance process also, but how could I help in this deliverance process if I need healing myself? So I had to learn that I had to heal. So this time around, I'm healing, and I'm continuing each and every day to heal. There's no perfect person. There's no person that's gonna come. The person's gonna come, but I have the level of maturity, and even now in my cotton, when I see certain red flags, I block the lead and I run. Then I say I so choosy now. Where because when I want someone who's mature, who say, okay, yes, I have issues, but I want to work on these issues. That's the difference.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
believe it or not, my husband and I have an excellent relationship. He come to me about the privilege of his marriage. Um, he said, I don't think I could work with this. I said, no, no, no. I gotta be malicious and say she was courting my husband on me. But I didn't look at that way. I look at it as here it is. There's a Christian lady seeking, you know, Let me tell you, yes, you love her, she love you. Change. Certain things she telling you, change. She ain't telling you for the betterment to bring you down. She's telling you to build you up, to be on the side of her, while she be on the side of you.
So in your marriage, because we're gonna take a break, you feel as if in this you both heard God
hmm
and y'all decided, hey, since we heard God, let's come together and be one. Was
Believe it
that
or
it?
not, I done love my husband. First sight, he done love me too. Okay? Plenty things I hear God say and I never went through it. You understand me? Because if I wasn't attracted to him, I wasn't gonna date him. I'm attracted, that's my type. And my family can tell you off the top, that's my type. All the guys I dated looks alike. So my thing is that
Step out,
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
go somewhere else, another color, another
Yeah,
culture.
yeah.
We're gonna take a break. We're gonna take a break. I'm just playing around with Bernice tonight. And after the break, we're gonna talk about how divorce, what's the effect that divorce have on children.
Mm.
You know, that's a serious thing, and we're gonna see if we can break that down, and if we are able to dissect that.
Sorry, guys. I thought I turned this off.
If we're unable to dissect that,
Sorry.
today we're gonna wait until our attorney comes. They should be able to elaborate a little bit more on that. So let's take a break.
Sorry, I thought I turned this off. Oh God.
It's the season to welcome to our Facebook audience. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today on episode 33. And as stated, we have Bernice, we have Minister Cedrica, we have CG on board, and yes, they are just y'all asked for this. Y'all asked for part two. So if you ask for part two, you have any questions, type it in the live, and we'll be able to read them for you. Thanks, Nadia. I got your message. We'll be able to read them for you, and whatever questions you may have. And ladies, if you want to share anything while we're on the break, go right ahead. Is there anything that you want to share while we're on the break?
Okay, well, my story is so extended, but but what just adding clarity or just giving a disclaimer, I've already made peace even in this process.
Right.
I've already reached out to him. We've already made peace despite his decisions that he's still living with. And I'm well aware that children are involved on all levels. And so I just want to do my best to just give the best representation of the story without bringing anyone down.
Obviously,
Yeah.
we would want. I think that's the wisest thing to do.
Yeah.
Because especially as women of God,
Mhm.
we don't want to have to bring down or pull down anybody else's home or family, regardless of if they stole the family or not. But I'm just saying. So yeah, I said it. So but whatever it is, when they strike, like Michelle, I think Michelle Obama said, when they was it Michelle or yeah, when you go low, we go higher. That was
Yes,
her who said
That's
that?
Michelle
Mhm.
Obama.
That's
Yes,
Michelle
Michelle
Obama.
said it, and so that's what we do.
Yeah.
Regardless of what
Yes.
happened. I want you to share, if you don't mind, because you started to, and we want to continue. Because everyone's like, "What? She deal with that?" Because Christmas coming up, family reunion. I don't know if she coming to the
Lord.
family reunion or not.
Well,
All right,
I-
so we wanna
Yeah.
when we get back on,
Mhm.
we're gonna share that.
Okay.
How much minutes? Let's do it. Everybody hold on mute. Thank you.
You brought up with the kids part of it. That was one of my major concerns.
Yeah, we're gonna
Um,
share that on.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like she said also, like, although my marriage didn't end on a good note, I've made peace within myself. I had to find closure for myself. I've no bitterness and no nothing because I've already released that. Yeah. So yeah.
What about you?
Yeah.
You want to describe the letter? You like just seconds before we go.
Okay. Let's wait. Let's wait. That was one more.
Thank you. So glad to finally be in here.
Inside. So we like,
It was so different. I felt so distant the
Mhm.
first time. But yeah,
Yes.
Get the feet off each other.
Yeah.
Yes,
To
definitely.
your lane with Coach Trish Hanna.
Welcome back. So this segment is brought to you by Jari's. Jari's Babysitting Squad is a professional mobile sitting service that babysits and caters to children ages 15 years and younger. They have a variety of packages to choose from, as well as custom group packages for events. Give them a call at 456-3847. You can find them also on Instagram and Facebook. It's JARISBABYSITTINGSQUAD. I can tell you it's Christmas time. Like I told my husband, I ain't staying home for nobody. I work hard from January to now. Every invitation, let's go. We going. And let me bring my boy with me in my bag because we toting too because mama ain't cooking for the rest of the week. Kidding. But that's now we want to this is deep. We want to talk about the facts now. The good thing about it is, yeah, I'll show you. You had with your first marriage, you had kids for your husband, and then you divorced. Talk to us about what your children may have went through, some things that you may have seen. Um, how were they dealing with it during that process?
Okay, well, my first marriage, he fathered both of them. One is biologically his.
Mhm.
Okay, but during this entire process, unbeknownst to me, until after I came out of this second marriage, I didn't realize how supportive he had been behind the scenes with the kids, through my mom, and that was really appreciated. Okay, and like I said, we have a very good parenting dynamic,
Mhm.
and so he still continues to be very supportive to the kids. And of course, we have our community, like the saying goes, it takes a village. So my kids have their resources. I have people in place if they need anything, if they need to get away. I have that set up for them to go. So I'm very understanding of them and I'm very proud of them. They have been very transparent and very understanding of the entire process. And they're definitely ahead of their time in terms of the wisdom that exudes them, in terms of how I've seen them carry themselves and just go through everything from the first to now.
That's
Yeah.
amazing
Mhm.
because I've heard so many stories with women who had kids who've been through divorce, and the experience was quite traumatic for the children. I've heard, and in my coaching, I've heard where children were they had like this withdrawal type. They blame themselves. You have some children who would feel bad, and like I said, I wonder if she's listening now, but there's someone I know who who who's well, they have two kids together, but the older one would feel guilty doing things for her father in her mother's presence whenever they have to be somewhere where both of them are around, because they didn't want to feel as if I'm doing something, like when you're friends
Yeah.
and you don't want the next friend know that the person who ain't talking to you, and y'all ain't friends no more, so you don't want to talk to the next. Y'all understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yes.
So she felt guilty or felt bad having to speak to her dad in her mom's presence, and so kids go through a lot too. So when you and of course I'm gonna have to speak to the thing. I'm sorry to give y'all a chance to talk, but when we go through this 3288164, if anyone who had kids who've experienced some type of trauma or withdrawal or whatever have you in their time of separation or divorce, you can give us a call and you can share more about it. But let's talk to Cedrica. Tell us what your son may have experienced, if anything, regarding this whole process.
Okay, so at the time, so this was, so he's 17. Okay, so he would have been like about 12, 13. So, of course, right at that prime age, of course, his father's not really active in his life. So here it is now. This man comes that I haven't even gotten a chance to, you know, really meet. takes my mom. I guess that's what he felt like. Okay, let me just go on and just, even though, I explained to him, but, he guess he was not that age where he understood, exactly, what was going on. So, um, here it is now. I'm gone because I left him with my mom. So I believe that he may have felt abandoned. I didn't know how much it affected him until actually when I came back. And of course, when I started to really go through the divorce, I believe there were many times that he may have seen me crying. There were times he may have seen me hurt. Because let's be real, children, they are sensitive. We think that they are oblivious or they don't know what's going on, but they can tell something is not right. And then him being a boy, on top of that, boys, they then have this thing where, the emotions and don't hardly show it and talk, but it showed in his behavior. It showed in his schoolwork. It showed, he was getting in trouble a lot at school. And so here it was now, me coming back. Like my ex-husband at the time, when we met, I said, now listen, everyone knows how I feel about my son. That's a touchy subject for me. And one of the things I said, we had a conversation, I said, listen, where does my son fit into all of this? That was before we even go any further, I want to know where my son fits into this equation. He said to me, oh, I'll treat your son like my own and whatever. And because with your 3 kids, I bonded. That was a concern for you. Right. And so when I came over, you saw the interaction, not just from myself, but you saw the interaction from your kids to me. Mm-hmm. And even when we got married, you saw, when they would come over on the weekends and I was there, you saw the interaction, you saw that. Mm-hmm. But on my end, it was almost like I had to kind of like force you to bond or force you to. And that was a big thing for me. Like I felt, and that caused like an argument because I'm like, okay, you said you would treat my son like your very own. So what you're going to do, whilst he's not here, you can still call him. You can still check on him when you come to visit me, y'all can still do things. What you're going to do, you're going to wait until he comes over in the summer to live with us. And then it's kind of awkward because you didn't really, really build that thing. Yeah. But in a way, it was like, he was like, don't force me. And I was like, okay. So for me, that was like, wow, like wasn't what we discussed. Why should I have to force you? Because I'm bonding with your kids, but it's like, there's a time frame that you've given yourself to do this thing or whatever. So it affected my son greatly. And we're still basically maneuvering through that process. I mean, he's a lot better now because, with a son, I had to let him know. I had to sit him down and talk to him and say, well, I know you're old enough to see what's going on. Do you know what divorce is? And I had to speak to him and say, guess what? Sometimes adults do things that, we don't understand or, what I mean? I said, but I want you to know that I love you. Because, of course, here's this young boy. He already see his daddy really, is not in his life. And then he's saying men come and go and like, what? Like, so the abandonment, the rejection. So that was a major thing for me. So I always tell people, listen, when you're going to do things, and especially with divorce, it does not just affect the person. It affects kids and it affects families. Yes.
Here's a question. Someone asked, what was the hardest thing? I'm going to let Lernice answer this question. What was the hardest thing for you as you divorced or when you divorced, and how did you get past it? What was the hardest thing for you during your divorcing process, and how did you get past it?
The hardest thing is actually walking away. Before I made a decision, I thought about it. And something my grandfather always would say to me, see, before you do something, you sit down, you think hard. You think very hard and look at the consequences of your actions and be able to be accountable and deal with it. So I sat down and I said, you know what? I just need to breathe. I feel like I was drowning. At that time, like I said, I just needed to heal. I didn't know who I was. I felt like I was living under the shadow of my parents. Mm-hmm. I needed to find me. Here it is, I'm in this marriage and I don't know who I am. So that was the thing that I had to think about. Okay, Lernice, let me start again. And then as a Christian person would say, but how could you start again? You could start in your marriage. I didn't know how to. Yeah, you got Christian friends who come into you and who's married saying that X, Y, and Z. This is what you need to do. Yeah, they probably went through that process where they found themselves before they got married. I didn't. Um, and I had to just, it's to a place where it got violent. I was the one who was the fight. I was the one who was the fight. I had a temper. I could pick up the knife and check you.
I want you to see how Tootie look at you just now.
Right.
When you said I was the one who would fight, Tootie gave you this. Tootie was minding his business, Nadia. When you said,
I was the one who was,
uh-huh.
I know what it is to talking to him, and I would just be in the fridge and take everything out and start throwing at him.
Bam.
And it was beyond him. The pain was in him. He was just the person getting the effect.
Right.
I want to change this now. The couple minutes that we have. Let's talk about some things that you would have done so that we could help those who are presently married or help those who are engaged. Because I'm going to have a moment where I speak with all of them and help those who are in the process of divorce. What were some things, like you said, you were violent. You didn't know yourself. You were coming to know yourself. All right. You didn't get to that point yet. What are some things that you can tell them, teach people, teach women about your experience that you would say, look, don't do it. Don't trust that. Don't try that. I did it. It didn't work. Let's go from Cedric and work our way.
Well, let me tell you something. This could go for the Christians or the unsaved. If you don't have a prayer life, before you get married, please get one. Because the minute you say, I do, the devil, his Grammy, his great grandmother, everybody is coming after you. And so I would definitely say that if you don't know who you are, you don't know your purpose, if you feel like you need a man to,
Validate you.
you're looking for love from your daddy, because a lot of us struggle with rejection issues from young. Listen, marriage is work. And so don't look at it for the glitz and the glamour. Yes, it's a beautiful thing. I believe it's a beautiful thing because God designed it to be that way. But listen, enjoy your singleness, man. There's no need to rush. I was at a place where I was content. Honestly, I was happy and I was content. The Bible said, he that finds, I didn't go looking. It's just that what happened to me was my lot. It was my process that I had to go through. Nobody goes into a marriage looking or wanting a divorce. It was something that I look back now and I be like, wow, like honestly and truly, like we gotta work it out. But if somebody does not want you, what could you do? Okay, and I began to lose myself. Do not lose yourself for a man. Do not lose your self-worth. You gotta remember who you are. And I started to lose myself because I started to fight for the marriage so much that I began to lose myself. And I had to catch myself and say, listen, here, girl, do you know who you are? Do you know what God has invested on the inside of you? Yes, it's going to hurt. This process is going to hurt, but what could you do? If a man already make up his mind, there's nothing you could do that is going to make him change his mind. So you have to live with it, build yourself, build your prayer life, know what it is that you want, work on the little issues, because I was not perfect, but I know honestly that I could truthfully say that I did not deserve what happened to me, but I had to live with it. Okay, and so one of the things, again, like I alluded to the first time, what I would do differently, or what I'd urge women to do, don't be picking at everything. You might have valid concerns, and yes, your emotions are valid. You might see some things that are very much valid, and you think you have to bring it to your husband or bring it to your fiance. You have to know when to. You have to know how to. Again, or even if not to do it at all. Some things you have to just pray about. Some things you just have to wait until. Not everything you see you have to just. Okay, I have to address it now because I see it now. I have to address it. I have to address it. That was one of my downfalls. I felt like I was had to address things, and it might have come off the wrong way. And so I would say, listen, get yourself together, man.
And CG's lot was a little different, if you don't mind sharing, um, with your divorce. And tell us what happened, because you started in this. People want to hear this. Because no, what people want to hear it.
Okay.
What caused you to get to this point?
I
I
got
wouldn't say what caused you, but you know what I mean. What
Mhm.
got to this point?
what I would say To your first question and then to this question, I would say that every woman, as an advisement, whether they're in any level of relationship, being a relationship with yourself, friends, before the marriage journey, you must get acquainted with wisdom. Wisdom is the principal thing. A wise woman builds her house, a foolish woman tears it down.
Mhm.
Okay, we can foolishly tear down our homes by being unable to control the emotional state of being when we're in very intense and high pressured situations.
Mhm.
And so it doesn't matter how high class, what, and how intelligent, what grade of a woman you define yourself as, when you're caught in a situation where it is really, it's not going good, you have to have wisdom and be wise on how you approach, and always approach with respect, regardless of how you feel, because soft words still, turns away and shifts
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
Okay, but in terms of my experience and how I got here, well, we had a powerful ministry, and like I said, I grew to love my soon-to-be ex-husband. I grew to love him. And when you grow to love someone, that means that you're choosing to accept, choosing that person, learning that person consciously. And that was my experience. But of course, those red flags that I saw, which I mislabel as hurdles, I reasoned with him, but it just wasn't working out. We had two different mindsets on how things should go. But on the outside, the ministry that we had, it was functioning, it was growing. We had a beautiful thing going on in my eyes on the outside, but on the inside, the house was void. The house being our marriage, it was not a good state.
Mhm.
The foundation was not there. We never necessarily had a friendship, like my fellow sister said. That foundation is very important. And then we also didn't have enough, I guess, love in that to extend grace, because love gives grace, to endure
Mhm.
and to cover the what we call the tolerable stages where we're like, you've got to be kidding me. And so for me, my where how I got here was my family member, who's my cousin. Um, she ended up having, and my son to be ex husband, they had an affair with each other, and they're still together to this day. Okay. But I will say that I've forgiven. Yeah, I know it's laughable.
No.
Yeah.
You
And I'm
laughing
in
at
space.
Tony
I'm
and
in
Tony.
space. Yeah.
Tony's like,
Space.
what?
Space. Is
Yeah. So in that regard, we've never had any issues. Not a single issue I've had with my cousin. Never once. I've always admired her. She's older than myself. I've always loved her dearly. And so for her to do what she did, that's beyond my comprehension. And I choose not to try to find out.
Right.
I've accepted the fact that the pain that I'd rather endure is the pain of me letting go and building anew, versus lingering and tormenting myself and seeing my kids lose their mother in terms of my virtue, my youth. No. So I had to make a very hard decision to choose which pain I needed to take.
That's good.
Okay. And, even to the people who looked up to me in the ministry, that was very difficult to even look in their faces, who we would have impacted, knowing the truth and seeing everything literally tear apart before my eyes, because I sacrificed my job to go full time in ministry. And we went through every level, every facet of relief. you know, that was my life. Mind you, I never watch all the episodes, but I'm just saying,
No, I
right?
couldn't watch all. I have to start at some point.
It was a lot of it was drama infused, but nonetheless, regarding my family member, it was a very traumatic experience, being that thanks. It was a very traumatic experience, being that that was a betrayal that I did not see coming
From family.
from my
Yeah.
family member, and also from my soon to be ex-husband, for them to do that. So it was a dagger in the front and in the back.
So if you
Wow.
don't, I don't want to get too much into it. You could tell me how
Mhm.
much you want to share,
Mhm.
but what would have given that space for them to? Was it at a family reunion? Was it at a church service? What would have given them that space to connect?
I would say that the dynamic in which it was for us, um, this was my journey. Okay. Whenever he went to do ministry, he left me behind home. And so he would then do whatever it is that he was doing. And so I could not, say what was happening versus what wasn't with whomever. And then, of course, at the end of the day, if someone chooses to do something, they will make a way to do it.
Mhm.
So I can even say, perhaps if I was, if he had me always with him to do ministry, then that still would not have stopped anything. That was his choice.
Mhm.
And so what I've done to date was I just chose not to even hate my cousin. It hurt me deeply, but I love her because the foundation has already been laid.
Yes.
We've had a very good family dynamic, and I love her kids. You know, we were there for each other in whatever capacities. We'd shared great dialogue, and I'd really looked up to her and I'd really respected her. However, I do not know the secret conversations that they would have had to make their bond so unpenetrable. And that was something that I had to decide. Do I want to fight the long haul for this, or just count my losses? And like the Bible says, if the unbelieving spouse wants to leave, let them leave.
Mhm. Mhm.
Amen. So, if you for those who are listening who may have been the same fate as you, as far as their husbands or significant other getting involved or being involved in an affair, well, how would you speak to a woman who don't know what to do at this point?
So, to a woman who doesn't know what to do but is aware of an affair,
Right.
much like my sister said, you have to pray. You have to come to a place and be very transparent with yourself and start to count the cost and count losses.
Mhm.
Because in some cases, even though you may lose in one season, you're winning in the next,
Oh, that's a breach. Oh yeah.
you know? And so,
Ooh, it's good right there.
with that being said, take this opportunity, and I stress it is an opportunity. Dig deep within yourself and start pulling out those treasures that you've not tapped into, because your next life is waiting for you.
Ooh.
And that is the outcome.
Wow. That's good stuff right there. The next season is waiting. Yes. The next season is waiting right there. Ooh. I like it.
Did not.
That's perfectly fine.
It's fine. The
Mm.
season.
Put in the work.
Yeah.
There's no time that is wasted. It may feel like hell, but even the Bible says, even when I make my bed in hell, God is still there with you. Like the Bible also says, even if you walk through the valley or valleys
Mhm.
and shadows of death, do not fear the evil that is surrounding you, the pressures that you may feel. Take the time to get to know yourself,
Mhm.
because people are waiting on you to pour out into them what they would not be able to get if you did not go through this.
Mhm.
Ooh,
Yeah,
child.
child.
Listen, y'all are resilient ladies. Y'all are good. And we're going to take a break. And after the break, we're going to have with us Nadia Hope Adderley, who is a family attorney, divorce attorney. And we're going to get her professional views on, divorce. What's the process all about? What are some steps that we need to take? And any other thing that she may want to share. CG, you are so powerful. God bless you.
Yes, very
Ladies, we're going to
powerful.
allow Mrs. Adderley to come in And let's just take a break and then we'll transition.
Choose an accessory.
So as we transition, I'm gonna let you all speak any little parting words because once again we're still on Facebook. Any parting words that you want to share, let me know. I'm gonna just get her, okay?
Yes.
Lernice, you can go first.
Yes. The only advice I recap what the two young ladies said that when you're a wife, you be a praying wife. And even in through your divorce journey, prayer. Pray, God will guide you through. He'll bring you through. And like I said, take it as an opportunity to start all over. Life is a journey. Is what you make of it. It didn't say that you wouldn't have some bumps in the road. You wouldn't have some hurdles to overcome, but it's for strength. It make you better. So, just be encouraged. This too shall pass.
Okay, and for those of you who are going through a divorce or going through some situation in your relationship, in your marriage, just know that divorce is not the end. You can pick up the pieces or what you deem to be the broken pieces or the shattered pieces and build a new you. Like my sister CG said, it looked or seems like a loss in one season, but I can tell you it's a gain in the next because I never thought I would be at this place. I didn't even think I would even survive the mental, the emotional. But can I tell you what I thought was a loss was just a gain? I'm so much better now. I'm so much wiser now. I have a hope that I would find love again and be even more happy because God is a God that will bless you with double for the losses. He does not just allow you to go through things for nothing. And so be encouraged, be strengthened. Listen, it's not the end. It is not the end. Someone else's loss will be someone else's gain, but you have to go through the healing process, find yourself. I'd even say get closer to God because listen, you're going to need it for these relationships and these marriages so that next time, because there will be a next time. I'm not talking about those who have already given up, but those who are desiring, there will be a next time. And next time, you win, sis.
I love it. I love it. All right, so we're gonna ask Nadia to come in. How much time do you have to leave? Okay, come Nadia. Oh, one of them? Sorry.
Okay.
Nadia, I have CG. If y'all want to take it down, I have CG with us. So CG is still in the process. All right, just in case you have any questions, and that's providing that you have it. All right. But I'll be speaking to Nadia and then we're gonna go back on that.
You talking about Sunday that you did?
Please.
Did you?
I obviously Tony run that fast along my life.
Yeah, he tried. He did the
Tony,
trick.
watch out now. Tony, now watch out. I need you.
Tell him don't fall down.
No, don't fall down, Tony. Tony, I never seen you run that fast.
Oh no, that's not positive.
Oh, you can chill. Here we go.
Welcome back. Guess what? We have a wonderful, beautiful, talented, gifted. I don't even know what all to say. So much different things to say about our next guest. And just let me just read her bio because my words just aren't really as fluent as I would want them to if I were to take my time and express how intelligent and everything she is. But her name is Nadia Hope Adderley, and she is a native of New Providence. She is a graduate of Nassau Christian Academy and the College of the Bahamas. She obtained her LLB at the University of Buckingham. Nadia was called to the Bahamas Bar in December of 2005. She is an associate at the firm of Harding, Lee and Company, where she has been employed since completing her bar studies. Mrs. Adderley currently practices general law, but her areas of interest are family law, including not limited to divorce law, adoptions, custody and access issues, and property law. She is married to the one and only Kevin Adderley. I don't know if he's tuned in, but we'll know for sure because we know he'll start typing in, "That's my baby." He loves to do it. I love the support and the energy from Mr. Kevin Adderley. God bless you, sir. And they have one son. Welcome back, Nadia. How
Thank
are
you so much. I am good, and it's great to be here.
It is great to have you here. Now, Nadia, we had some really wonderful, strong, I like the resilient word. That's the word for them. If I were to give them one word, resilient ladies. And this is one out of the three that were able to share their process of being divorced. So I haven't gone through the process of divorce with, you know, less than 2 years of marriage. I don't know if these are some things that come across your table, come across your um, firm as far as marriages. And if you can tell me, like, about roughly how many years into marriage do you see where people actually come in and say, "Okay, I'm going to have a divorce or get a divorce"?
All I can say is the time periods vary,
Right.
but I would say in the last few years, we are starting to see where it's, we have the standard 2 years. I had someone who called me a couple of months ago and they were only married for 6 months
Okay.
and was asking. And it's something that we're starting to see a lot more of because by law, you have to get special permission if you are married for less than 2 years in order to pursue a divorce. So that's been something that's been escalating, particularly since the lockdown, Trish.
Mhm.
We've seen, a lot of marriages suffered, and I think, in my opinion, it was not the beginning of problems, but a lot of issues came to a head as a result of this pandemic and lockdown. And these are some of the things you're only hearing about the health part and
Right.
financial aspects, but in our society, we actually had marriages that became a problem or a burden or to the point where it was a breaking point.
So, what are some of the reasons, if you could share about three, maybe two or three of them, that you heard of, experienced, or come across as the reason for the divorce in your firm?
Well, I mean, we have a lot of persons feel in our society that adultery is one of the main issues.
Right.
But adultery is sometimes one of the things that happen as a result of other issues that have already manifest. One of the things is financial and economic issues. I was listening to your guest earlier. Communication and having a strong bond is a very important issue. And also being able to relate or navigate some things. Like, for example, me and my husband, we always talk about when persons who are married didn't have to navigate social media, but even social media is something that you have to navigate because there's so many undertones that happen. You have, to me, I feel as though with social media, it's always the pressure to conform.
Right.
You have to take this time to appear that you're very happy, even though you can take a picture and you could be smiley and laughy. And as soon as we snap that and post that, we go back to our argument. So sometimes these are the things that creep into our society that causes issues.
So you said communication, finances, what did you refer to?
Adultery.
Adultery. Right. Somebody asked, could they divorce outside the country and register in the Bahamas?
You can. It all depends on if you are residing. If you're residing abroad and it's permissible where you are, yes, you can, and you can have what you need done. If there's any orders relating to children or anything, it can be registered in our country. So definitely.
I think it was one of the questions I asked you when you were here last, and I don't mind asking again for those who may be listening to us for the first time. Have you ever listened to a married couple try to explain their reason, and in their head you're like, "Miss, you can't be serious," or "Sir, yeah, good."
Well, I mean, sometimes you have some situations where you have to just step back. I think one of the things is that sometimes people don't even know how to effectively communicate their issue to you. And so, sometimes I have those situations where I have to say in a meeting, I say, what we're going to do? I want you to go home and do a timeline for me. Tell me exactly what happened and send me that timeline. So sometimes people have issues even with communicating what is happening to give you a fair sense of what's going on. That is common, and that can be for many reasons. Some people are traumatized over the entire situation. And so sometimes it may be difficult to actually bring that out when being interviewed. And some people are nervous from the interview from the outset.
Right.
I always try to tell my clients, this is your time with me. Be comfortable. I can only assist you if you give me the information so I can help you.
Right.
So that's very important. I think people have to realize that if it's one person you can trust or you should trust is your attorney, because sometimes we may not have to use all of the information, but the information is helpful to get a context and to get an understanding of what's going on.
Okay, so can you go through the divorce process with us? Can you explain what happens if somebody who's interested when they give you a call? What happens straight down to the very end? when they
Okay.
ask?
No problem. We encourage consultation for matters, meaning you set up an appointment. And the purpose of a consultation is I have to tell you whether or not you have sufficient grounds to get a divorce. In our country, we have cruelty, which can be mental or physical, adultery. You have desertion for at least 2 years. One of the parties just suddenly moved. And then you have 5 years separation. It may not be that anything happened, but sometimes people separate. But our laws consider that if you separate and you've been separated for 5 years or more, then that's enough time that has passed to allow the other party to move on.
Before you continue, what would be the evidence that you need to prove that you've been separated for 5 years?
I mean, when you do the application before the court is called a petition. And in that petition, you do an affidavit to say that the contents of the petition are true. So the contents of your document in terms of a separation is just taken as it is based on the evidence that you give.
Okay, so let's move on from there.
Okay. So once you establish that and you have one of those grounds after you're being interviewed, then we draw up the petition, which is the application. That document is filed before the courts. It is given a number and registered. And when it's returned, then we can go ahead and serve the other party. We usually get a police officer to effect this service. And then once it's done and that person is served, you have to wait for 8 days to see if they're going to respond. The other party has a right to respond if they wish to be heard. They may say that they want to contest the divorce. That's another avenue of a very complex situation. Most divorces are not contested. Once that process is done and the time period is gone, then we apply for what is called the registrar certificate, where the registrar of the Supreme Court would grant us the permission to file for the date. Once the date is filed for, then an application is made to the listing office of the court, who will then assign a date. And once that date is assigned, then you have your first hearing. If there are children over the age of 18 and they're already working, not in college, or there are no children, then at that time, once we have that first hearing, you have to go on the stand, you have to give your evidence and confirm what you said in your document, and then the court grants a divorce decree. That's called the decree nisi. It is not final yet, though, because there's a period of 90 days before it can be made final. Now, if there are children, then matters for the children have to be sorted out in a second hearing that's held privately behind closed doors, meaning that the public doesn't have access to that. And then matters for the children will be sorted out. And also, if there's any property or other assets, those matters are sorted out then as well. And so once that is done and the court is satisfied, then you can get your final decree, which is called a decree absolute. You cannot do anything or move on with your life or anything without that decree absolute being granted by the court. And once we receive it, it is filed. And then the divorce would be officially over.
Let me ask you. You said you can't do anything or can't move on with your life until the decree absolute.
Remarriage.
What would be the reason for the courts not granting giving you the approval for the decree absolute?
Well, it's not that they won't give it. It's just that by law, the 90 days have to pass before you can go and make application for it. Once the nisi is given, the absolute won't be withheld. So that's the thing. Now, sometimes there may be instances with persons. Sometimes if we as lawyers, we have to say that where our services and the fees for our services have to be satisfied first before we go ahead and apply for that final document.
Let's talk about the fees. And you don't have to say exactly how much you charge or anything like that. So let's give a figure. Let's give average of how much it costs for a divorce, the entire process.
Well, fees vary, first of all, depending on lawyer to lawyer. Right. A more senior lawyer would have the right to charge a higher fee. That's something that's standard by the bar. But roughly, you would say you can start at about maybe $4,000. and then it can go to the ceiling, because if there are assets to be determined, you have persons who have properties, then you're dealing with a lot more fees, $20,000-$30,000 worth of fees. So
The starting fee is roughly just
well,
$4,000.
that's very rough, and it all depends on the circumstances. But
Go ahead, us.
listen, it costs $100 to get married, but I tell people that's not the case when it comes to getting a divorce. That's a different story, and there's a reason for that. Divorce, you have to get a divorce at the Supreme Court, so that's a high level of court. There's a high level of expertise. We have to do a lot of paperwork, and the Supreme Court appearance is of value because, of course, the attorneys can go and make this on your behalf. So that's the value. You're getting the value of having a professional to do your affairs and to ensure that your paperwork is in order so that you can get sorted out.
Now, I allowed TG to stay in this time with us, or this session with us, because she's still in the process, just to see if she has any questions. This is just, I didn't even ask her beforehand, but just in case she may have something to say or ask you in your presence, if you do.
What I would say is regarding the reason for this, the time of this, pandemic, for things coming to a head, you are so right on that, so spot on in that. That's how everything really came crumbling down for me in this journey. Because we'd already had our vow renewal ceremony, and I can laugh at it now, in 2022, early part. Then I learned of the affair, and then that was it.
Things can change
Quickly, all in the same year.
Things can change quickly.
So let's talk about, this is another question I asked you before. I said the question when you first came on board, and I'll ask again. Have you ever counseled a couple into coming back together? Where they literally say, what, thanks so much for not for speaking to us. Thank you for allowing us to see things that are different, in a different perspective, and they're now happily back together.
Oh, definitely. As a believer, I encourage that, because sometimes if persons are open to, like this year, I've had quite a few persons who called, and the first thing when you come to see me, I always ask, did you attempt or make any efforts to have counseling? And I had someone who said no, and they said, I'm going to call you back. And when they did, they said, I think we're going to take your route, and we're actually going to pursue counseling so that we can try and work things out. And then I got a call back to say that they were reconciled and they had moved back together, and they were very thankful for my advice in terms of attempting to have counseling, because a lot of persons are so busy focusing on the issue, sometimes they don't even think of trying to focus on the resolution.
I love that. So, CG, do you have any more questions for me?
No, because my process is basically just about complete. I'm just waiting on my court dates.
Yeah,
And then
you're almost there.
I'm almost there. So, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to continue. Thank you so much, CG. Y'all don't move though, because I want to talk to you. So Nadia, I have you to know that Mr. Adderley, all on this Facebook Live, just I don't know what's going on. Oh, there's a beautiful lady. I can be right here. Or exactly.
I hope you're talking about me.
He's talking about you. But we go through things. We go through situations, especially when we feel as if we can't handle matters. In marriage, you always have conflicts. There will always be ups and downs. I can't wait to talk. But what are some things that you can tell people as a divorce lawyer? What are some things and advice that you can give for persons who are married, and even those who are in the process of being married?
One of the things I always say is that I think
Divorce. Sorry, the process
Yes.
of divorce.
I think that one of the things we have to realize is that we come from a society that glamorizes marriage. They tend to tell you some of the good, they always tell you the good things and the wonderful things, but are we really preparing people for the things when they don't go well, and how we handle that? I don't live in a fairy tale. Not every marriage will survive. I think what is most important for the divorce process, and I was listening earlier to people who had children, And that is something that I'm personally moved by. We have so many children who are adversely affected and in ways that you do not want to imagine. We have children who've, not just the standard, well, you got behind in your schoolwork or you may be acting out. We've had some who resort to cutting. We have some who resort to suicide attempts. And it's because they are broken and then they don't feel, because the parents are so bitter and arguing with one another, they're not focusing on actually trying to ensure that even if we have to go through this process, that the children are stable and that they're being communicated with. Because even the smallest child will always know when something is
Yes.
wrong. They can sense when something is different. And we cannot make light of that and think that children are not being affected. We cannot take light of that and think that our families and friends are not affected by it as well. Because it's not just the two persons, they're a wider family. You have support out there, and everybody grieves and hurts when you go through the divorce process. So I always encourage couples. I always, even in my practice, I always say, listen, please don't ever be shy to come to me if during the process you may think that you want to make up. I've had that happen too. Persons decide, you know what, we may be at this point in the process, but we feel as though we want to try and make it work. And I encourage that. We have to, because this is the bedrock of our society. Family life is the bedrock of our society. And so we have to do our best to maintain it. But even when things don't go well, this is where co parenting and even being decent individuals to say, listen, we may have issues, but let us work to get past it so that we can just move in a different direction, but not with all of the conflict.
Okay. I like how you said the co-parenting thing. So, uh, I would like to ask, how does the court determine who gets what? Like, who has the child on the weekends and things like that? This is Rika who said that her ex-husband had to deal with having his three kids on the weekend, and then the ex-wife had the kids on the weekend. So how do we determine that here?
Well, sometimes it may vary because not everybody has the same situation. But generally, the courts encourage, of course, custody, meaning the right to make decisions will be vested in both parties. And then, of course, generally, a woman has daily care and control, meaning that she can make day to day decisions for the children. More than likely, you will have where people work it out. You may have a Monday and Thursday with the mother, and then Friday to Sunday, or it may even be in reverse depending on what's going on with the parties and what's happening. I think we are in a society now where men and women work. And so I encourage parties to be flexible, and you have to give and take, because even if the court makes an order, real life can happen at any moment. Someone can become ill, someone can have a life changing situation. And so parties have to be flexible. The children still have to be done. So everything should be done for their best welfare and all decisions made for their betterment and in their best interest.
How should one prepare who's going through this to obtain a favorable outcome during this process?
I think that if you're going to do this, then try to be amicable with each other. Try to come to some sort of resolution. It doesn't help you to be bitter about it, because when you're bitter, it's already a traumatic experience. And so you don't want to then have further trauma that's going to affect the parties, affect the children, affect their families. And even with people who don't have children, I say to them, your families can still be affected. Your friends can still be affected. You, most of all, will be affected. So prepare yourself by trying to say, listen, let us be reasonable in coming to any type of settlement. So that's important.
And do you have any closing remarks from a standpoint, either from a wife perspective, from mother perspective? In fact, I want three from you. I want the wife, I want the mother, and I want the professional attorney. Please.
Okay. From a wife's perspective, I think that, we have to be careful in terms of what we say and how we say things, even when things don't go well. It can be so damaging. We women, we are emotional creatures. So we have to govern ourselves. And that's a message from me too. See, Kevin? Hear that?
Is he Kevin? Is he?
I'm admitting it.
Okay.
Myself included. I'm not immune from that.
No.
As a mother, you must put your children first at all times. And I think that one of the things that I always say is that we have to even be more realistic and even take a look at our premarital counseling. And also, we have to realize that for the sake of our children, sometimes we may have to get counseling throughout that marriage, not just when things go bad.
Right.
But especially when things go bad, one of the things that I try to introduce or encourage is for persons to get family counseling, not just counseling for the parties going through the divorce, but everybody needs to go as a family because we're now transitioning to something different. Divorce will look different. And so family counseling can be a tool to help you to do that. So that lays on my heart as a mother because we have to look after our children. As a professional, I think that we need to be more mindful that when we make certain decisions, we then have to understand the effects of it because a lot of people I see don't think about things down the road. They think about this is what I want right here or right now, but you have to think about the impact of your decision. The fact that you're coming to an end of a marriage, the fact that your children are going to have to now reside in two different homes, which may be less than ideal, but it's not impossible. But it's up to the parents to make that a livable situation and understand that raising children is it's not impossible to do it after divorce. It's not impossible. And personally, of course, realistically, we have to put Christ in everything that we do. And so even if we get to this difficult decision, it's certainly not over. And there's still work to be done even after that. So it's not a death sentence,
Absolutely.
not in the least.
I love it. I love it. Now, time for my talk to the audience moment. But just before we do that, we just have a little break then
Okay.
before I talk. But obviously, the break from the radio,
Mhm.
and then we can still have our conversations. I'm going to bring the ladies back in during this break with Tony. Right? Right. All right. So stay tuned, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. We're just going to wrap up right after this break. We're going to have everyone in.
Hi. Yes,
Mrs. Adderley, this is Cedrica Pratt.
Hi, nice to meet you.
This is Lernice Williams.
Hi, and I already met her.
Right. So as we're on our break, I'm still going to ask the people to find out if you all have any questions for her. As we have an attorney with us and present with us. Do you have any questions for Mrs. Adderley while she's here?
They don't know over the process now.
Yeah, but sometimes you may have one or two little questions that you want to share. You good? Yeah? Huh? You good? All right. I called y'all until we can take our pictures before y'all leave. Because I was going to let y'all leave here.
Without the photo.
All right. So excuse me, Facebook. We're going to take some pictures real quick and then come right back. Let me get the three ladies. Put the three ladies in that help you.
Okay, no problem. Mhm.
You good? Let me get the picture.
Ready? Ready? One more.
All the best. Yes.
My husband's having the mood. Yes.
Ready?
Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you so much for
Take care,
tuning
nice
in, everyone. And so, for those who are just joining us, you're late, but we had with us Minister Cedrica Pratt, Lernice Williams, and C.G. McFall that discussed their issues, or the process that they had to go through to get to where they are now as divorcees. And they shared a little bit of what are some things, or some things that they would have learned during that process. And thereafter we had Mrs. Nadia Hope Adderley on with us, and she was explaining to us the divorce process, and the cost of divorce, which she stated the minimum is about $4,000. Y'all know good and well, ain't nobody into spending no $4,000. But if it means to go, for your sanity and for your life, you got to do what you got to do.
Mhm.
All right. And so now I would like to share my talk to the audience moment. And I have stated in our very first show with divorce, how did I get here? And I want to continue with that, which is to forgive. Forgiveness is key. You're not just forgiving the person, you're forgiving yourself. And in that process of forgiveness, I know sometimes with women, we could just be so disgruntled, we can be bitter, we can have resentment stored up in us. And I can tell you the best way to deal with that is to pray. Pray for that person. You're praying for the husband. You're praying for, let's say it was an infidelity, so you're praying for the sweetheart. Yes, I know it's hard. I know it's hard. You mature when you're praying for the sweetheart too. You're praying for their deliverance and salvation. You ain't praying for the lightning to strike them down. Okay,
That's right.
you
right.
ain't praying for anything negative. And if you are a believer, the word of God says that you bless those that despitefully use us. Okay, you bless and not curse them. There are a lot of women out there in the world who beg to differ, but that's fine. But if you want to stick to the word of God, I would ask that you forgive them and that you would pray for them. Deliverance is key. And my second point is to check in with your children. Divorce has an effect, as we have stated, has a major effect on the children that are involved. Look for signs of distress. Look out for withdrawal when they act out. Mrs. Adderley stated some instances they go through cutting, they go through process of suicidal thoughts, and as I've stated, a few colleagues that I know have children who feel guilty. They're withdrawn. They feel as if, okay, if I talk to mommy, I have to talk to daddy, but I can't let mommy see I'm talking to daddy. They are impacted and affected by this whole process. So when you are thinking about all of this, you have to consider them, consider community, as Mrs. Adderley stated. All right. And then when they go through those processes and they're acting out, don't try, attacking them. And we like to go for the belt and the switch and stuff. Let's talk to them. Let's take them through counseling. When you go to counseling, bring them along with you. They need it. We want to we want to have a healthy society, and it's things like this that causes distress in our children and our minds, and then they act out in class, and then they're always being held and called into the office, and then this is the reason why. This is the residual, or the impact, or the effect that it has. It's a trickling effect because of the mistakes sometimes that we as parents make. For those who are still married, I want you to know that every marriage goes through storms. Every single marriage goes through storms, some more violent than others. But storms do not last always. Sometimes you want to give up. Sometimes while you're in the boat, you feel like you like how I used to be sometimes. The story with Jesus in the boat with his disciples? When you're in them storms and them marriage storms, I used to be like, man, Lord, let me just jump out the boat one time. Let me go in the storm right now. I'm just going to sea because this ain't it. You have those moments. You have those moments when you be like, I just ready to give up. And guess what? Once you give and commit your issues to God and you ask Him for wisdom, He will give that wisdom to you. He will grant you the wisdom to know how to deal with your marriage as a wife, how to deal with parenting as a mother. All right, weeping may endure for a night. And I said this in one of my, but we know this. Weeping may endure for a night, joy comes in the morning. Not every issue or any little thing that happens, any little storm that may erupt means that, oh, I'm going to go get a divorce. Stick through it. Ask for stickability. And if you're thinking about divorce, seek wise counsel and professional counsel before coming to that conclusion. Sometimes it can just mean communication issues that may need to be worked on. Sometimes it's just mere pride. You have some men out there who don't want to seek counsel, don't want a second opinion, don't want a mediator because it's just pride holding them back. Man, you could go get counseling, but I ain't going. I don't need nobody in my business. Ain't nothing wrong with us. In those situations, wise, if you have to go by yourself, go by yourself. But for whatever you do, if you know that these are situations that can be fixed, find some type of counseling, find some type of help, find some type of resource to fight for your marriage if it's worth it to you. Because some people it may not be that worth it. Some people they may don't mind spending the $4,000 plus for divorce. All right. Speak to a professional and understand that when you speak with a mediator, they get to show you things from a different perspective. All right, you have to count the cost. Think about if you really, really want to leave all of this, all you have to think about all the different investments. Think about your children, and in fact, listen. I know Apostle Wells don't mind me sharing this. Apostle Raymond Wells, in one of his In It to Win It statements, look at Pastor Olivia Wells and say, listen, I invest too much in you, baby. Y'all know how he's talking. I invest too much in you, baby. Meaning we've already placed in, each other. We've already grown to know each other. We've already invested in each other. We know each other's secrets and we know what our goals and all this stuff. We ain't gonna let Satan come and try to snatch that. What? I didn't put all that in you, and then not even that. Let me go a little step further. I didn't put all of that in you to let somebody else come and try to take that. No way. If you are a believer, seek God's wisdom before making any decisions. Any decisions. Know when you are under a spiritual attack. The enemy loves it when believers separate. Some people lose really good families and testimonies because we don't want to put in the spiritual work. Marriage takes work. Some people are fighting the wrong person. You're not fighting your husband. Your husband is not fighting you. You are fighting the forces that are trying to disrupt what God has placed together. Okay, so go and look at your husband. This is what I always recommend wives do. You ask God to, hey, please show me or let me look at my husband the same way that you look at me. That compassion, that grace, that mercy, that love. You're looking at him the same way. Look up that every fault that you have. Remember those faults that you have. Remember them sins that you think nobody else seen. God had to forgive you. And in that same right, we're able to forgive our spouse because we are one. And his word says that we love each other as we love ourselves. To those who are engaged to be married, sweet girl, I hope y'all know what y'all getting into.
They don't.
Oh, they don't know, but they won't wear the ferret. Listen, there's nothing wrong. When you've already consulted God, you've been through your marriage counseling, you've been through your prep and all these different things, and you done whatever, and you know it's a sign to say, let's go, and you have confirmation from God, go ahead. I ain't stopping you. So don't let me feel as if I'm stopping you. I'm talking to the ones who just find Mr. Whatever he thinks or she thinks it's Mr. Right. And then she just start planning and she's spending more time in the marriage planning than in the actual preparation. I'm referring to those ones. They're spending more money in how the fairy tale wedding should be and not money investing in counselors and coaches for premarital counsel. I'm referring to those ones. When you see red flags in him, please note that you cannot fix him. Don't say, well, I see them things, so I can just wait till they get older or whatever, and I can just try to fix it. That's fine. He'll grow out of it. No, honey. You have to do some deep thinking to determine if you can deal with those red flags for the rest of your life. If you are a believer and you're engaged to a man that is unequally yoked, please note that it would be very difficult for God to bless disobedience. All right? Please pray before making the next move. I have a colleague who was 2 months prior to getting married, where she finally saw the red flag. I mean, like she saw red flags, but she said, you know what, this was the main one that caused me to say, no, I can't do it. And she was thinking about, because they've already invested in property, they've already paid down payments for the marriage and everything. They listen, honey, that's okay.
That's
Because some of
okay.
those
Get
things
that back.
you could get back, but
Right back.
your life. And she was talking about the embarrassment. You can imagine being in the marriage and the embarrassment and the hurt and the pain, and someone having to catch a case. Let's think about these things. Let's think about before we make those mistakes, before we say I do, before we get to this point where we're on a talk show saying divorce. How did I get here? Let's think about those things. Lack of premarital education is also a contributing factor of divorce. As we stated, people come in with high expectations and ignorant of their spouse's thoughts and views on their spirituality, how they resolve conflicts, communication, dealing with in laws, social skills, etc. For premarital or marriage coaching, you can go to my website, www.yourlanelifecoaching.com, to sign up for a free consultation. I'm wrapping up today's show, and I am so grateful for my guests that came in studio today that were able to share with us all. And today's show was brought to you by Airborne Freight and Cargo Services, John's Shoe Store and Accessories, Family Medicine Center, Lowe's Wholesale, Your Lane Life Coaching, and Jerry's Babysitting Services. Now, for next week, we are wrapping up our show for 2022. Next week, Sunday, and we'll be discussing money management under the topic Financial Literacy 101, featuring two financial professionals, Mr. Alfred Poitier, who is the CEO of National Workers Cooperative Credit Union, and Mr. Dino Cartwright. Listen, we can't go into 2023, ladies, with the same financial mindset that we have now. We have to elevate. And I try to catch one or two of y'all before next week's last shopping and sales and stuff.
Yes.
You understand? I really wanted this particular show the first Sunday that we have in December, but because of things beyond my control, we had to have it for this final show. But that's fine, all right, because we're gonna learn some things. And so I want to thank my producer Tony. Thank you to my Facebook audience, our continued listening audience, and our first-time listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you once again, Mrs. Nadia,
You're
for
welcome.
coming.
Good to be
Thank
here.
you so much, Cedrica, Lernice, and CG in your absence. We ask everyone to please follow the page Your Lane Life Coaching on Facebook so that you can get all the updates and goodies from the show. And then you can go to Coach Trish Hannah on YouTube to watch all the previous shows. Please like and subscribe. I pray that you were all empowered, educated, and encouraged today. And until next time, have a blessed evening, everyone. To my Facebook audience, let's read some of the messages before we go. Now, do you have so much people talking there? Let me see what they were saying. But you know your husband all over there. Yes, there is love after divorce. Oh yes, Miss Audley said that lady is really pretty. I didn't tell you that, right? You know, you gotta put in his 1-2 for the night. People are saying I admire you, strong women. Of course, the ladies are gonna watch this when I'm done. Uh, I like that. I like that homework assignment Mrs. Adderley gives the couples. Sounds like she tries her best to offer some intervention before proceeding.
Of course.
An attorney with a heart. I love that.
Yeah, no, I
I
have
love
to.
that.
I have to make sure, because a lot of people sometimes they don't think about it, or they so consumed with going on, they didn't even think about that.
But then you have some lawyers who just think
No,
about
they
the money.
don't. No. Can't be about that, because my thing about it is when I looking at the whole picture, especially when I have people come to me and say, and the baby 4 months, no man,
Wow.
the child even ain't having an. I had one where the divorce did go through, and at the time that she came to see me, she had her little boy was 1,
Oh, Lord.
and I'm telling her, I said, listen, do you realize when we do an order, you realize for a 1-year-old, he was then 2 at the time when the divorce was finalized. For a 2-year-old to have to be in between homes, I said one of the biggest factors of that is Children have to be to bed. When I go home, I don't. By the time I walk in the door at 6:30, I didn't winding my child down for
Yeah.
bed.
Yeah.
So he now has to come home at 7 o'clock to then be no,
Yeah.
no.
And at that age, they need stability.
And then you going from one person to the next,
Right.
and then
Right.
people do things differently. She called me complaining the diaper dirty, the this,
Oh, no.
that. He coming. See, but you see, this is not what this was intended to be for.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to be contemplating these types of things with
Yeah.
such young children.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's serious, but it was a good show. I listened to your guests intently. I wasn't shocked, but all of them have not been married for a long period of
Yeah.
time. Very short.
Yeah. I'm actually going to, for those who are still listening, this is going to be a series because there are so many women after the first show with them
Mm-hmm.
who came out and said, yes, I'm going through the same thing, but I've been married for 30 years.
And that's why I told you it varies, because I do have people. I had someone who came to see me last year and they were married for 20 years. And don't think that because you've been married longer, you don't have problems.
God, sometimes it'd be worse. I have, like I said, I can't wait to bring those others in. The ones that I'm bringing in would be like 10 plus years,
Yeah.
20 plus years,
Mm-hmm.
because they'll have like a more in depth. Because I mean, y'all been established.
That's what I'm saying. You see, by that time,
children and must see done in college.
yes.
What happened? What went
Different
wrong?
points. Mm-hmm. Different points. Different points, but that's how it is.
Wow. Y'all see Tony unpacking, so we're just gonna talk until he's
Till
done.
he's
If I
finished.
can't cut it off, I don't know how to cut it off. So Nadia Hope, what else you want to say, man? Come speak to these people.
I think we have to be mindful, and like I said, people are not prepared for what it takes. And marriage preparation, is some people, they only do a few sessions, but you really need some help. You need people, and especially with managing money. We live in stressful times where we had such a challenge. When you think about what happened with the lockdown, and you had a situation where at least one person wasn't working, that's a test of your marriage.
Yes.
Because then now you have to shift. Somebody have to step up and do whatever you have to do, but you just needed to make it happen. These are the tests that you have to prepare yourself for. It's not about just the glitz and glamour. But even if it gets to the point and you deal with divorce, deal with it with dignity. Don't be posting up on Facebook, posting your
All the man
petition on
business.
Facebook, posting your private documents. See, these are the things, and that's why when I was speaking about the impact of social media,
Yeah.
social media can tend to do some things because people
Knowledge.
then lash out and post their personal business regarding intimate affairs with their divorce. And the thing is, that's nobody else's business, because even in our system, divorces are sealed matters, and only the parties and the clerks and the judge can see the papers. It's not for the public to come and be on your divorce file. Family matters are private. So you don't take it upon yourself to air your dirty laundry regarding your matter. But it's done from a place of bitterness, resentment, and anger. And I think these things need to be clear before you even start the process of doing it, because you need to be in the best place to deal with it. It's already stressful on its own.
And then let's talk about briefly, I admire churches who invest in marital, what is it? I just went blank just now.
Ministry.
The ministries and conferences.
Because it needs to be ongoing. It's not just premarital counsel.
And family things, stuff like that,
Building family life.
You would know a healthy church when you have a designated and dedicated marriage ministry in there that is able to bring and to help and to because you do have some men, once again, who don't want the one-on-one with nobody knowing that business, but when they actually come into different, let's say the church is having something, and then they have to come in because this is something the church is, they'll be able to hear what it is,
and it can change their perspective.
And change their perspective.
Yes.
So for those who know of churches who are not doing that, I don't know, you got to pray about it. If you're in a church that is not active or not involved in marriage ministry, y'all got to work it out, do something to try to maintain that as much as you can. And then it's usually free anyway.
Yes.
So take advantage of that.
It's a community effort.
What red flags has Hope heard clients share? Have you heard any red flags from your clients?
Red flags. Well, in our society, a lot of red flags is when you see persons having a changes in behavior and pattern.
Mm.
They begin spending more time out of the home. They then create excuses as to why they can't do certain things. And you may notice a lot of people, and it may not be that you're not home. Sometimes you notice that you're not having the quality of marriage life, like you're not going out on dates anymore. You're not spending time. What's the quality of your conversation like? What are the likes that you have? It's nothing wrong with persons. You're not gonna find someone who likes the exact same thing that you do
Right.
with everything. But there needs to always be mutual things that you can come together
Together.
and speak about
Mhm.
and discuss and make time for. I can tell you when you have children that changes, but you then have to be able to say, okay, we could designate this time, this priority, this our time. What you doing with that? So these are some of the things that you see. Sometimes it's not just the blatant you staying out till 3 o'clock in the morning, although we have a lot of that going on. Even now. I don't the people came to me and say my husband was missing during the lockdown, but where he is. If you're not home, then what does that tell you? Because if you're the shelter in place, you can shelter in place where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
But that, and the reason why I said that the pandemic or the lockdown was a trigger was because what happened was when everybody had to be in that confined space, then you had a situation where the seams began to crack.
Mm.
Because now I can't go out and have my outlets to make this
Right.
work. We actually had to be forced to deal with some things, and they just didn't want to deal
They
with it.
couldn't deal with it. They couldn't deal with it. So yes, we're wrapping up now. Tony's ready. He done
Yes.
pack up. He
Yeah,
ready
we
to go.
okay. We gotta let Tony go.
Yeah,
It's wonderful.
Nadia,
Thank
it
you,
was
everyone.
just a pleasure having you. As always. I
Anytime.
have you to know when you come in the next time, I've given you the real mic, and then you're gonna take over the show. Because that means that you done what?
I don't know the
You
process
done
by
know
now.
the process now. You could list off all the sponsors. You could try take the show and ask me questions. But thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tony. And
Thank
God
you, Tony.
bless you. God bless everyone. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.